Hi folks, Sal here. I just want to highlight a pretty interesting study that just came out that we at Khan Academy had nothing to do with. I just found out about it a couple of days ago, but it's a working paper, an NBER working paper, National Bureau of Economic Research. The title is One Click Away, AI Tutoring with Khanmigo in a 2-Year School Experiment by Phil Ariopoulos and Nina Lowe. And there's some really interesting things about this. This is done in 18 Tennessee middle schools that randomly assigned actually grade levels into either the treatment group or the control group. Control group was what they were doing before, which was a mix of things, but in most of those situations, pretty heavy reliance on other online tools. So this isn't a comparison against no technology or a comparison against, let's call it traditional didactic lecture or something like that. This is a comparison for the most part against other online tools, most of which, I think all of which, are more expensive to use than Khan Academy. And what it found was a statistically significant effect size across it. And when you go to the details, it's actually even more interesting. Year one, they saw it was neutral-ish, but in the study, they talk about that they were just, every year one, you're doing transitions, it got started later, et cetera, et cetera. Year two, they saw a 0.08 effect size, which is an okay effect size. It shows some statistically significant effect. But once again, this is not versus nothing. This is versus other tools, what they were doing before, which arguably, all of those folks have also published efficacy research. So this is above and beyond that. Now, what's even more interesting, and I guess we're proud of this, is when you look at students that, if you adjust for students who would have been in the entire year. Now, in a lot of studies, when people drop out of something, let's say a drug trial, when people drop out, it's usually because they have such bad side effects or it's just not working for them that they drop out of the trial. And so that skews the folks who are in the trial to have better results. This is a program where if after a semester the students are performing well based on their standardized test scores, they're actually taken out of the trial. And my understanding is a good fraction, roughly 2/5 of the students, were able to graduate out after a semester. So one would argue that the students who are finding the most growth, and this is an intervention block, so this is primarily, these aren't high-flying students. These are primarily students who are behind grade level. So the ones that are seeing the most gain are actually taken out of the study for the full year. And so adjusting for that, and one could even make an argument that maybe even this is an underestimate, it's 0.14 effect size. Now, that would be a pretty good effect size, once again, if you were just comparing to status quo, nothing, et cetera, et cetera. But what's exciting about this one is this is compared to other ed tech alternative tools. Now, the authors do mention that they're using actually an older version of Khanmigo, and I've spoken a lot about the students who used Khanmigo or in the past did the first version. They got a lot out of it, but a lot of students didn't. It wasn't deeply integrated into our system. If students just wanted to do the assignment, they didn't have to go through Khanmigo, et cetera, et cetera. And we never want to force someone to use something unless it's actually giving them a benefit. But they mentioned that the gains seen in this study were similar to the gains that we see on Khan Academy pre-Khanmigo. And that is true to some degree, because once again, this is an RCT, a randomized controlled trial, not versus nothing, not versus traditional didactic lecture. This is versus other ed tech tools. So I'd say even this old version, this was done over 2 years, from what years was this? I think essentially the last 2 years before this. So this was using the old version of Khanmigo. That one is showing gains over the ed tech alternatives that are more expensive. And now I'm really excited, and I wrote a recent blog post about it. The new version of Khanmigo, and once again, it's not using AI for AI's sake, which is much more going in there every time a student gets things wrong, trying to make sure a student can understand that notion and that moment of reflection, where teachers get better reports on where students are having gaps, and they can explicitly assign Khanmigo tutoring interventions on those topics and getting reports back on it. That I do suspect, but we will see when we have our next wave of studies, maybe another year or two, is going to see even more. But the big takeaway, and once again, we had nothing to do with this. And most of the 50 plus studies on Khan Academy are like this, fairly independent or completely independent of us. But it's pretty exciting to see this type of data. So take a look at it and yeah, comment.